At 71 years old, a millionaire widow becomes the target of a young seducer who sees her as nothing more than a chance for wealth. He plots every move, believing he is in control, but she, aware of his intentions, harbors a dangerous secret that could surprise him at any moment. Leonardo Morone paced back and forth in the living room, his face flushed with indignation, while his parents looked on with disappointed expressions. The room, adorned with sophisticated pieces, now carried a suffocating tension. After years of pampering and excessive luxuries, Leonardo was finally facing what he feared most: the loss of his privilege. His parents, tired of his irresponsibility, had decided to cut off all the perks he had always taken for granted. "This is ridiculous," Leonardo exclaimed, his voice laden with anger and disbelief. "Do you really think I can live without money? How do you expect me to pay the bills? How do you expect me to live?" His father, Alfredo, who had remained silent until then, sighed deeply before responding. "You need to understand, Leonardo, that we can't keep supporting your irresponsibility. We've destroyed 3 cars on a whim, as if money were eternal. It's time for you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet." Leonardo clenched his fists, his wounded pride resisting the reality he couldn't accept. "Oh, sure, now it's easy to say that, but who raised me this way? You always gave me everything, and now you want to treat me like I'm a stranger." His tone fluctuated between anger and pleading, as if he expected his parents to backtrack at any moment. His mother, Mariana, intervened, trying to stay calm, but her eyes betrayed her sadness. "We've tried everything, Leo, but you never learned to value anything. Maybe this is the only way for you to understand the value of things." Leonardo laughed a hollow and bitter laugh, trying to mask the fear growing inside him. "You are going to regret this. You'll see that I don't need anyone to live." Alfredo merely shook his head, sad but resolute. "I hope so, son. I hope you find your own way." Furious and feeling betrayed, Leonardo stormed out of the room and slammed the door, while his parents remained silent, aware that they had taken the most difficult step of their lives. Enraged and with his pride wounded, Leonardo headed to his uncle Carlos's restaurant, the last relative he could turn to. Carlos, unlike Leonardo's parents, had faced a life of struggles. He built his restaurant with his own hands and always valued honest work, something that Leonardo scorned. As he walked through the restaurant door, Leonardo tried to hide his irritation and put on a neutral expression. Carlos was at the counter, arranging cutlery, and upon seeing his nephew, smiled warmly. "Leonardo, what brings you here at this hour? It's not common for you to show up like this without warning," he said, wiping his hands on his apron and gesturing for Leonardo to take a seat. Leonardo sighed heavily and leaned his elbows on the counter, trying to appear casual. "Oh, you know how it is, uncle. I wanted to talk to you about some possible help. My parents decided to cut my allowance, and now I'm kind of needing a quick solution." Carlos watched him with a keen and thoughtful gaze, noticing the nervousness behind Leonardo's expression. After an uncomfortable silence, he cleared his throat and replied in his firm and honest voice, "Well, I can offer you a job here at the restaurant. I know it's not what you expected, but it's honest work. We need someone to help in the kitchen and with the tables. Of course, the pay is modest, but it's honest and can help you get started." Leonardo tried to hide his frustration. The idea of working as a helper in his uncle's restaurant seemed too humiliating. He lifted his chin, adopting a slightly arrogant tone. "I don't know, uncle. Cleaning tables and washing dishes? That doesn't seem appropriate." He chose his words carefully, trying not to offend Carlos, but his disdain was evident. Carlos sighed, already expecting this reaction. "Leonardo, there's nothing inappropriate about earning your own money, even if it's little. Honest work doesn't disgrace anyone. If you want to change, you need to start somewhere. Leonardo hesitated, battling against his pride. Finally, he stood up, forcing a smile. "Thank you, uncle. I'll think about it." And he quickly left, not looking back, leaving Carlos with a worried expression. As he walked back home, Leonardo thought about how drastically his life had changed. Working as a kitchen helper was out of the question. He needed a solution that would guarantee him a comfortable and luxurious life without too much effort. It was then that an idea came to his mind. He had heard about a rich and lonely widow, Isabel Costa, who attended some social events. Perhaps, Leonardo thought, she could be the golden opportunity he had been looking for. Leonardo spent the following days investigating everything he could about Isabel Costa. At 71, Isabel was an influential widow known for her fortune, built through an interior design business. Her reputation for kindness and generosity circulated among the elites, but what truly interested Leonardo was the fact that she had only a few distant relatives. Loneliness seemed to accompany her at every event and reception she attended, which made her, in Leonardo's eyes, a perfect target. That night, Leonardo put on his best suit, adopting an air of self-confidence that hid his insecurity and nervousness. He knew that the first impression would be crucial to gaining Isabel's trust. Upon arriving at the event, his eyes quickly found her. Isabel was in a corner of the room, casually chatting with some acquaintances, holding a glass of wine and smiling warmly. Leonardo took a deep breath, rehearsing what he would say, and headed toward her, adopting a friendly smile. "Good evening, Mrs. Costa. What a pleasure to see you," he said with a slight bow. "I'm Leonardo Morone. I believe I know some mutual friends." Isabel looked at him, surprised but with a spark of curiosity in her eyes. "Good evening, young man. Ah, Morone. That surname rings a bell." She smiled, amused, and gestured for him to come closer. "And what brings you to this event, Leonardo?" He smiled, playing the role of a young admirer seeking wise advice and friendships. "I confess I'm fascinated by the world of business and design, and I thought it would be a good idea to meet people I admire, like you. Your journey is inspiring." Isabel let out a genuine laugh, clearly flattered. "Well, it's rare to find young people interested in anything beyond themselves. Tell me, Leonardo, what do you hope to learn from someone like me?" He held her gaze with intensity. "Honestly, everything I can. I want to understand how to build something that has value, something lasting." Isabel paused for a moment, analyzing the young man in front of her. There was sincerity in his eyes, or at least she believed so. Feeling surprisingly at ease, she nodded. "Very well, Leonardo. I hope to teach you something. We can talk more about this another time. How about a coffee?" "It would be an honor, Mrs. Costa." Leonardo left the event with a satisfied smile. He knew that the first step had been taken. Isabel, lonely and seeking someone to listen to her, had taken the bait. Now he needed to proceed with caution and persistence. After the event, Isabel and Leonardo began meeting frequently. In each meeting, he listened attentively to her life stories, showing a deep interest that Isabel had not encountered in others around her. Leonardo offered to help her with small tasks, always present, attentive to every detail, which gradually earned Isabel's trust. One sunny afternoon, Isabel and Leonardo were having tea in the garden of her vast estate. The conversation flowed easily until Isabel touched on a more personal topic. "You know, Leonardo, sometimes I feel like everyone around me gets close because of my money," Isabel commented with a slight sad smile. "It's not easy to trust anyone." Leonardo, sensing a golden opportunity, leaned forward with an understanding expression on his face. "Mrs. Costa, I understand what you mean. Money can complicate everything. But honestly, My admiration for you goes far beyond that. You are an inspiring, strong woman, and I'm just a young man wanting to learn from your example." Isabel stared at him, moved by the apparent sincerity in his words. She was used to people trying to please her, but the way Leonardo seemed to value her knowledge and experiences was something she hadn't expected. "It's rare to hear that, Leonardo," she replied gently, squeezing his hand. "You remind me of someone I met in my youth, someone who always valued who I was, not what I had." He smiled, feigning calculated modesty, and averted his gaze. "I'm glad to hear that, ma'am. You will always have a true friend in me. Just call." From that day on, Isabel began to trust Leonardo even more. He became not only her student but also a close friend, someone she could confide her innermost thoughts to. As this relationship strengthened, Leonardo was sure that his plan was progressing as intended. In the weeks that followed, he became a constant presence in Isabel's life. He helped her organize events, accompanied her to appointments, and even advised her on small decisions. Isabel, increasingly comfortable with his presence, felt rejuvenated and finally accompanied. Leonardo knew he was about to achieve something much greater. He just needed to solidify Isabel's trust and maintain the image of the young admirer that she saw. And for that, he was willing to do anything. Leonardo's constant presence alongside Isabel began to draw the attention of Lucia, the widow's granddaughter. From an early age, Lucia had learned to be suspicious. Leonardo's intense behavior kept her on alert. With each visit, she observed him more closely, noting how he seemed to appear at times when Isabel needed company or help the most. Although Isabel was happier than ever, Lucia felt that something was out of place. One night, while helping her grandmother organize some papers, Lucia decided to bring up the subject, trying not to sound aggressive. "Grandma, I don't want to sound rude, but this Leonardo guy, he seems to be so present in your life now. Don't you find that strange?" Lucia commented, forcing a casual smile. Isabel chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Oh, Lucia, you worry too much. Leonardo is a nice young man. He reminds me of someone I met many years ago. You can't imagine how rare it is to find someone who genuinely cares about what I have to say." Lucia bit her lip, trying to stay calm. "Yes, but don't you think he's too young to be so interested in hearing stories and so involved in everything around you? It seems a bit suspicious." Isabel sighed, frustrated but with a compassionate look. "Dear, I know you're just trying to protect me, but Leonardo is a young man who has gone through difficulties. He just wants to learn. I cannot judge someone just for their youth." "Maybe," Lucia murmured, trying to disguise her concern. "But you know, there are people who take advantage of those who trust too much, Grandma. I just want you to be careful." Isabel smiled gently, touching her granddaughter's face. "Lucia, dear, I know you worry, but I can't live in fear of everything and everyone. Trust me, I have my instincts." Lucia nodded, but in her heart, the unease persisted. Determined to protect Isabel, she knew she needed to keep a close eye on Leonardo. If he was trying to deceive her grandmother, Lucia would find out, no matter the cost. The tension between the young woman and her grandmother's friend began to grow. And days passed, and the relationship between Leonardo and Isabel grew even closer. His constant presence, support in difficult times, and patience in listening to her made Isabel begin to see him in a different light, almost as someone who brought color and youth to her life. Leonardo noticed the change, and it was precisely at that moment that he decided to take the next step. On a quiet night, Isabel invited him to dinner at her house. The atmosphere was cozy, with soft lights and classical music in the background. Amid laughter and conversation, Isabel shared memories of her youth, stories she had kept in her heart and had not shared with anyone for a long time. After a few glasses of wine, the mood became more intimate. Leonardo, watching every movement and expression of Isabel, noticed her vulnerability and decided to act. He gently but firmly held her hand and looked directly into her eyes. "Isabel, I need to confess something," he said with a serious expression and a soft tone. "Spending these days by your side has been an experience I never imagined I would live. I feel complete." Isabel, surprised, blinked rapidly, hesitating. Her heart raced, and a slight blush spread across her face. "Leonardo, what do you mean by that?" she asked nervously but with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. He squeezed her hand, trying to appear vulnerable and sincere. "I know I may be being bold, but what I feel for you is special, Isabel. It's not something I want to ignore." He paused, letting his words resonate. "Since we met, I've realized that you are an extraordinary woman, and even with the age difference, I feel deeply connected to you." Isabel fell silent, clearly emotional. A part of her knew this could be an impossible dream, but another part was tired of loneliness, wanting to believe that Leonardo could truly have sincere feelings for her. "Leonardo, I don't know what to say," she laughed, trying to mask her insecurity. "Do you really think this could work? There is so much that separates us." He smiled, forcing his voice to sound affectionate and determined. "Isabel, life is too short to deprive ourselves of something that brings us joy. I just ask for a chance. Nothing more." Isabel, touched by the courage he seemed to have, finally nodded. Maybe I have the right to feel happy again." With the secret romance growing between them, Leonardo realized that Isabel was beginning to show even more dependence and affection. He knew it was the perfect moment to take another step forward. Their relationship was still just at the beginning, but Leonardo needed to ensure that Isabel was completely involved. One afternoon, while they strolled through the gardens of the estate, Isabel spoke enthusiastically about the trips she dreamed of taking but had never realized since her husband's death. She sighed melancholically. "You know, Leonardo, I have always dreamed of revisiting Italy, where I spent my honeymoon. It may be foolish, but I would like to see those places again." Isabel smiled sadly, looking at the horizon. Leonardo saw the opportunity. Without hesitation, he took her hand and gave a comforting smile. "Then let's go, Isabel. I would love to go with you. You deserve to relive those memories. And if you allow me, it would be an honor to be by your side on this trip." Isabel seemed surprised, emotional, but still hesitated. Traveling with Leonardo sounded like a lovely idea, but at the same time, it was something completely unexpected for someone of her age and position. "I don't know, Leonardo. What if people talk? And my family? Do you think this is wise?" she asked, her voice hesitant but already taken by the idea. He squeezed her hand more firmly and, adopting a soft and understanding tone, looked directly into her eyes. "Isabel, we are just living. Other people's opinions shouldn't define what we feel or what we want. I will be with you for whatever you need. Just give me this chance to make you happy." Isabel, moved by the dedication he seemed to show, nodded, feeling her heart warmed by the possibility of a new adventure. "All right, Leonardo, let's go to Italy. Maybe it really is a chance to start over, even if just for a few days." Isabel smiled, her eyes shining with the promise of moments she had already considered lost. For Leonardo, everything was perfectly aligned. The trip to Italy was not just a whim. It was the next step to strengthen the bond between them and to convince her of his loyalty. Moreover, he knew that the days together, away from any external influence, would put him in an even more secure position. Italy, therefore, represented a golden opportunity to consolidate his emotional control over Isabel, isolating her from anyone who could awaken her suspicion. The trip was decided, and he began to prepare to make every moment unforgettable, carefully calculated to make Isabel feel increasingly involved. The trip to Italy began as a dream for Isabel. She and Leonardo explored the charming region of Tuscany, walking through picturesque villages, tasting local wines, and visiting the beautiful landscapes. Isabel seemed rejuvenated. Each experience brought her memories of youth and filled her with a joy she hadn't felt in a long time. Leonardo observed every detail, calculating each word and gesture to win Isabel over even more. He knew he was advancing with his plan. However, the trip also began to raise Lucia's attention, who could not ignore the restlessness in her heart. Determined to protect her grandmother, Lucia decided to confront Isabel over the phone, feeling that her grandmother was increasingly under Leonardo's control. "Grandma, this trip, don't you think you're going too far?" Lucia asked, trying to remain calm, but the concern in her voice was evident. Isabel sighed, already anticipating the confrontation. "Lucia, you need to stop seeing everything with suspicion. Leonardo is here with me, and he has been a true friend. You can't imagine how good he makes me feel." Lucia bit her lip, holding back her frustration. "I understand that he makes you feel good, Grandma, but still, traveling to another country? What if something happens? We've known this guy for such a short time." Leonardo, hearing the conversation from a distance, realized that Lucia was trying to undermine Isabel's trust. He decided to intervene, touching Isabel's shoulder and speaking softly. "Isabel, I don't want to be a bother. If your family really thinks I'm crossing some line, maybe I should let you enjoy the trip alone." Isabel, however, felt hurt by Lucia's distrust. She looked at Leonardo tenderly and held his hand. "Don't be foolish, Leonardo. Lucia is just protective, but she needs to understand that I'm fine and that you are my company by choice. I trust you." Turning her attention back to the phone, Isabel said firmly, "Lucia, I am an adult, and I know very well what I am doing. I'm going to enjoy this trip, and Leonardo is a valuable friend. I hope you trust my judgment." Lucia, having little else to say, ended the call, uncomfortable but unable to convince her grandmother. What she feared, however, was that Isabel was blinding herself with the attention Leonardo was giving her. When she hung up, Leonardo flashed a satisfied smile. He knew that Isabel's trust was becoming increasingly solid. Moreover, the tension with Lucia meant that Isabel, even if unconsciously, would be more distanced from any voice that could awaken her suspicions. The trip to Italy continued to bring Isabel and Leonardo closer, but upon their return, Lucia decided it was time to act. Determined to protect her grandmother, Lucia arranged a meeting with Isabel for an honest conversation. They met in a quiet cafe, and Lucia wasted no time expressing her concern. "Grandma, we need to talk about Leonardo," said Lucia, trying to stay calm, but the tension in her voice was evident. Isabel frowned, visibly uncomfortable with her granddaughter's seriousness. "Lucia, dear, we've already talked about this. Leonardo is a friend. He has been a wonderful companion for me." Lucia sighed, trying to contain her frustration. "And that's exactly what worries me, Grandma. You just met each other, but he is always by your side, always available. Don't you find that strange? People like that, they can hide intentions." Isabel shook her head, disappointed. "Lucia, you need to understand that people don't always have ulterior motives. Leonardo is a young man, yes, but that doesn't make him a user. I trust him." Lucia took a deep breath but decided to be more direct. "Grandma, I don't want to be rude, but do you realize that he is benefiting a lot from this relationship? He has been with you the whole time during the trip, and you know very little about him." Isabel, touched by Lucia's concern, softened her tone but remained firm. "Lucia, I know you're worried, but I think you're being too harsh. I have my own intuition, and so far, Leonardo hasn't done anything that raised doubts for me. I believe he is being sincere." Lucia, realizing that her words were not having the desired effect, changed her approach. "What if I asked you to investigate his past?" she proposed, observing Isabel's surprised expression. "Just to make sure, just so I can have peace of mind. If he really is as upright as he seems, he won't have anything to hide." Isabel hesitated, reluctant to accept the idea of investigating Leonardo, but upon seeing Lucia's sincere and anxious look, she eventually gave in. "All right, Lucia, if this will ease your mind, we can do this. But I warn you, if nothing is found, I hope you treat him with the respect he deserves." Lucia nodded, relieved. "Thank you, Grandma. That's all I ask." What Isabel didn't know was that this decision could put everything to the test. Lucia hired a private investigator, initiating a discreet but thorough investigation into Leonardo's past. Meanwhile, Isabel remained unaware of the fact, believing it was merely a formality to satisfy her granddaughter. Leonardo, unsuspecting of Lucia's plan, continued to feel confident that his role was working perfectly, unaware that his facade was about to be tested. A few weeks into the investigation, Lucia received a call from the private investigator. On the other end of the line, the man confirmed what she feared most. Leonardo Morone was not who he appeared to be. In a discreet meeting, the investigator presented documents detailing the young man's past, exposing a history of irresponsible behavior and opportunistic relationships. He was known for taking advantage of older, influential people, always with the same pattern of manipulation. Lucia was in shock, but her protective instinct quickly replaced her surprise. She knew she had to tell Isabel everything, even at the risk of hurting her. Determined, she scheduled a meeting with her grandmother, choosing a private setting for what would be a difficult conversation. When Isabel arrived, her demeanor was serene. She sat across from Lucia, as if expecting a pleasant conversation, unaware of the storm of revelations she was about to face. Lucia took a deep breath and decided to get straight to the point. "Grandma, I need to show you something about Leonardo," she began carefully, taking the documents out of the folder. Isabel frowned, uncomfortable with Lucia's serious tone. "Lucia, we've already talked about this. I said I trusted Leonardo." "He has been a loyal friend," she replied, trying to push away any doubts. Lucia sighed, sad but determined. "I know you trust him, but believe me, you need to see this. I didn't do this to hurt you, but to protect you." Reluctantly, Isabel began to read the documents. Her expression transformed as the details were revealed. Records of manipulative behaviors, relationships motivated by self-interest, and even small scams perpetrated against older and influential people. Each page seemed to weigh heavier until Isabel could no longer contain her disillusionment. She looked at Lucia, still in shock, her hands trembling. "This cannot be true, Lucia. I trusted him. I believed that." Her voice broke, and she averted her gaze, trying to maintain her dignity. Lucia held her grandmother's hand, squeezing it gently. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I know this must hurt, but he doesn't deserve your trust. He is not the person you think he is." Isabel, in a mix of pain and anger, tried to compose herself. Disillusionment washed over her, but she knew she needed to act calmly and with dignity. Her thoughts raced, and the first idea of confronting Leonardo took over her mind. But above all, she needed a chance to breathe and process everything she had just discovered. Finally, she raised her gaze to Lucia with renewed firmness. "Thank you, my dear. Now that I know the truth, I will take the right steps. But I will do it my way." Isabel's voice was resolute, revealing the strength of a woman determined to take back control of her life. The next day, Isabel decided to confront Leonardo with what she had discovered. With a heavy heart and firm dignity, she invited him to her house, saying she needed a serious conversation. Leonardo, still confident in his manipulation, accepted the invitation with a confident smile, believing the meeting would just be another moment of closeness. Upon arriving, Leonardo noticed Isabel's cold and distant expression, something unusual. She was sitting in the armchair of her office, the investigation documents discreetly stored beside her. He tried to approach with the same charm as always, but Isabel raised her hand, signaling him to keep his distance. "Please sit down, Leonardo. We need to talk," she said, her voice firm. Leonardo, intrigued, sat down on the leather sofa opposite Isabel's armchair, trying to hide the worry that was beginning to grow in his chest. "Of course, Isabel. What's going on? You seem so different today," he said with a cautious smile. Isabel looked at him for a long moment before responding, her penetrating gaze seeming to see every part of who Leonardo truly was. "Leonardo, I found something out about you. Something that, honestly, I never imagined." She began with a voice heavy with disappointment. "I thought you were an honest person, someone who cared about me. But what I found proves otherwise." Leonardo, feeling the ground shake beneath his feet, forced a smile and tried to divert. "Isabel, what are you talking about? I've always been honest with you," he replied, trying to keep the tone light, but his voice revealed a slight hesitation. Isabel ignored the response and instead opened the folder with the documents and placed them on the table between them. The evidence was there, laid bare, showing Leonardo's manipulative history. "Do you think I'm a fool? Do you think you could deceive me forever? I trusted you, Leonardo. I believed in your words, in your gestures, and in the end, it was all part of a plan to take advantage of me." Leonardo swallowed hard, realizing that his disguise had been unmasked. He attempted one last move with a look of false surprise. "Isabel, this is some kind of misunderstanding. Someone is trying to harm me. I would never do anything to hurt you." But Isabel would not be shaken. She stood up with unwavering dignity. "Don't underestimate my intelligence, Leonardo. I saw everything I needed to see, and now I need you to leave my life forever." Leonardo, feeling cornered, realized that the game was over. With nothing left to lose, he dropped the mask and revealed his true character. "Do you really think I cared about you, old fool? You were just an easy source of money. And now that it's over, it doesn't matter to me." Isabel recoiled, shocked by the brutality of his words, but she stood firm. "Leave, Leonardo, and know that all the doors that opened for you through me will be closed from now on." Leonardo left the house with his pride wounded and without the financial security he so desired. After Leonardo's departure, Isabel felt a mix of relief and sadness. The disillusionment still weighed on her heart, but the dignity she preserved gave her strength. She allowed herself a day of mourning for what she believed to be a true friendship and, for a brief moment, even a possible love. But Isabel was not a woman to surrender to hurt. The next day, she decided it was time to reorganize her life and value those who truly deserved her trust and affection. First, she called Lucia for lunch at home. When Lucia arrived, she found her grandmother with a lighter smile, even if a bit melancholic. "Grandma, how are you?" Lucia asked, genuinely concerned. Isabel smiled, touching her granddaughter's hand affectionately. "I'll be fine, dear. I have a lot to thank you for. You saw what I didn't want to see. Love can blind us, Lucia, but you protected me, and I will never forget that." Lucia squeezed her grandmother's hand, emotional. "I will always be here for you, Grandma. My biggest fear was seeing you hurt, and well, I'm so sorry for that." Isabel shook her head, reassuring her granddaughter. "Don't feel that way. The pain passed, and I learned something valuable. Let's just move forward together. I'm lucky to have you by my side." After lunch, Isabel made an important decision: to reconnect with old friends, dedicate herself to causes and activities she had always enjoyed, and most importantly, take total control of her life again. Determined, she reached out to a local charity and offered her time and financial support to help underprivileged children. As she became involved with this project, she felt revitalized, as if she were finding a deeper and more rewarding purpose. Gradually, Isabel began to feel a new sense of freedom. Being surrounded by people who truly valued her and being able to contribute to something bigger brought her a kind of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, Lucia watched her grandmother with admiration, seeing Isabel transform the blow of disillusionment into a new beginning. They didn't need Leonardo, nor his false promises. Together, they were stronger than ever. As days turned into weeks, Isabel dedicated herself more and more to her work at the charity, where she found unexpected and rewarding joy. She met several children who inspired her with their stories of overcoming adversity, and little by little, she began to feel that she was finding a new purpose. The feeling of being useful and loved for who she truly was, and not for what she possessed, brought her a sense of fulfillment that no opportunistic company could provide. One day, during one of her visits to the charity, Isabel was introduced to Thomas, a young man who, at only 16 years old, showed extraordinary talent for painting. His works were profound, full of emotion, and as Isabel saw them, she felt moved. She approached him with curiosity. "Thomas, these paintings are impressive. Where does all this inspiration come from?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. The boy smiled shyly, looking down. "I paint about what I feel and see around me. Life can be tough sometimes, so I turn that into colors and shapes. It's a way to deal with things, you know?" Isabel nodded, touched by his sincerity. It was rare to find someone so young with such a mature soul, and at that moment, she realized she could help open doors for him. "You know, Thomas, I would love for you to exhibit your work. I have friends who would be very interested in your talent, and who knows, this could open new opportunities for you." Thomas's eyes lit up at the proposal, and he could hardly contain his emotion. "Really? That would be a dream. I never imagined something like this could happen." Isabel smiled, feeling rejuvenated by the opportunity to truly make a difference in someone's life. "Let's make it happen, Thomas. I will be by your side on this journey." This gesture did not go unnoticed by Lucia, who saw her grandmother's happiness slowly returning. Isabel was blooming again, increasingly distant from the shadow that Leonardo had left. The connection with the children, the sparkle in her eyes while helping others, and the genuine joy of seeing someone like Thomas grow showed that Isabel had discovered a new and sincere purpose. Thomas's exhibition was a success. Isabel invited friends and acquaintances to the event, where the young artist's works impressed everyone. Each painting told a story of overcoming and strength, and Isabel, seeing the glow in Thomas's eyes as he received compliments, felt truly fulfilled for the first time in a long time. She didn't feel like something was missing in her life. That same night, after the event, Isabel and Lucia talked about the impact that Thomas and the charitable work had brought to both their lives. Isabel held a glass of wine and gazed into the distance, as if reflecting on everything she had been through in the last few months. "Lucia, if someone had told me 6 months ago that my life would change so much, I wouldn't have believed it," said Isabel with a slight smile. "And to think that for a while, I believed happiness depended on the presence of someone like him." Lucia nodded, resting her hand on her grandmother's shoulder. "Sometimes, bad experiences show us what really matters. I feel that you have finally found something true, something that cannot be taken away from you." Isabel agreed, feeling grateful to have Lucia by her side. But to her surprise, as they were talking, The manager of the gallery where Thomas had exhibited his paintings approached with an unexpected proposal. "Isabel, I know this event was organized for Thomas, but several people asked if you would consider doing it again with other young artists from the organization. It seems there is a real interest in supporting this cause." Isabel fell silent for a moment, absorbing the impact of the idea. A new exhibition, and more than that, an ongoing project to reveal young and underrated talents. It was something bigger than she had imagined, but the prospect excited her deeply. She turned to Lucia, who smiled, encouraging her. "Grandma, I think this is an incredible opportunity. You have always wanted to do something that would leave a legacy, and now you have the chance to change lives in a real way." The decision was made. Isabel accepted the manager's proposal, determined to turn the idea into a reality. This was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a project that would not only bring her joy but also meaning. In the following months, Isabel's charitable project grew rapidly. The launch event for young artists revealed surprising talents, and the news spread throughout the city. Isabel dedicated herself enthusiastically, personally taking care of the details and ensuring that each young participant received attention and encouragement. The work not only brought a new light to her life, but also strengthened her relationship with Lucia, who supported her at every step. On a sunny afternoon, Isabel and Lucia were organizing the preparations for the next exhibition when a familiar face entered the gallery. It was Thomas, now more confident and with a sparkle in his eyes, accompanied by some friends from the project. He brought with him a special painting, a gift for Isabel. "Miss Isabel, I would like you to accept this painting as a thank you for everything you have done for me," he said with a sincere smile. Isabel looked at the painting, which depicted a field of flowers at dawn, a symbol of a new beginning and hope. She felt a wave of emotion, seeing the affection with which Thomas portrayed her support. "Thomas, it's beautiful. I couldn't ask for a more special gift," said Isabel, moved. "This project is as much yours as it is mine. You have taught me as much as I have helped you." Thomas smiled, and Lucia, watching the scene, realized how much her grandmother had changed. Isabel was no longer the woman who sought happiness in empty promises or opportunistic relationships. She was now the solid foundation of an initiative that gave meaning and purpose to her life and to many young people around her. That night, Isabel and Lucia sat together, reminiscing about the journey to this point. Isabel, emotional, spoke sincerely. "Lucia, I thought I was lost after everything I went through with." She paused, almost reluctant to say Leonardo's name. "But today, I see it was a blessing in disguise. What I lost in illusion, I gained in truth." Lucia held her grandmother's hand, feeling the pride and connection between them grow. "Grandma, you turned a wound into something beautiful, and that is inspiring. Now, the happiness you have built is yours, and nothing and no one can take that away from you." As Isabel and Lucia consolidated the project and reached even more young people, an unexpected event put Isabel's strength to the test. One morning, when she opened the door to her house, she found none other than Leonardo. His face showed signs of fatigue, and he wore a smile disguised as regret. "Isabel, please listen to me," he said in a humble tone, as if he were truly remorseful. Isabel, shocked and cautious, took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. "What do you want, Leonardo?" she replied, her voice calm but with a firm gaze. Leonardo sighed, keeping a look of sorrow. "I know I was a fool, Isabel. I know I made serious mistakes, and that you have no reason to listen to me. But my life fell apart when I lost you. I realized that everything I did was wrong. I just want a chance to apologize, to perhaps fix things." Isabel felt a mix of anger and pity. In other times, perhaps her heart would have been vulnerable enough to give him a second chance. But now, after everything she had built, Isabel knew that chapter of her life was closed. Leonardo, I've been through so much because of you. I learned a hard lesson, but it transformed me. You were just a catalyst, nothing more. There's nothing to fix here. I forgave you to move on, but there's no place for you in my life, she said with a calmness that surprised even herself. Leonardo was left speechless, feeling the weight of Isabel's words and realizing that she had truly moved on. He made one last plea, his voice wavering. Isabel, I know I was wrong, but can't you give me a chance to show that I've changed? I have nothing else, and you've always been the only person who really believed in me. Isabel looked at him deeply, but not with the hopeful gaze she once had. It was a look of compassion and, at the same time, of closure. Leonardo, you were an important lesson. Now, I am at peace, and my life is full without needing you. May this experience help you reflect on who you want to be, but my forgiveness does not mean a second chance. She gave one last farewell smile, closing the door as Leonardo remained silent on the other side. After the definitive farewell to Leonardo, Isabel felt more determined than ever to expand her charitable project. Inspired by the stories and talents of the young people she had met, she and Lucia began planning a series of traveling exhibitions to bring the art and stories of these young people to other cities. The goal was ambitious: to reach more young people and give them the same opportunity that Thomas and others had received. Amid the planning, Isabel and Lucia worked tirelessly, coordinating events, seeking sponsors, and expanding the support network for the project. For Isabel, seeing the young people gain self-confidence and discover their own potential was a reward greater than any material wealth. She felt that by investing in those young people, she was investing in something that would endure, creating a foundation of support for future generations. One afternoon, while reviewing proposals for a new exhibition, Lucia watched her grandmother with admiration. You know, Grandma, what we're doing here is incredible. You turned something that seemed like an irreparable mistake into a force that changes lives. Do you realize the impact of this? Isabel smiled, touched by her granddaughter's words. It's not just about what I did, Lucia. It's about what all of us do together. This project has given me a second chance to live with purpose, and I thank every day for finding something so true and rewarding. Lucia nodded, moved, and held her grandmother's hand. You are an inspiration, Grandma. I'm so proud to be part of this with you. Lucia's words warmed Isabel's heart, and she realized that the legacy she was building was more than just financial support. She was shaping lives, inspiring change, and nurturing a new generation of talents that valued their own potential and integrity. Each young person who went through the project carried with them a seed of hope and perseverance, something she could never have imagined before. Finally, the big traveling event that Isabel and Lucia had planned so much arrived. The exhibition featured works from the young people who had participated in the project, each telling a story of overcoming, hope, and transformation. The venue was elegantly decorated, and the atmosphere was one of celebration. Guests from various cities attended, curious to learn about the work of the new artists and to touch the reality of the initiative created by Isabel. As visitors circulated, Isabel and Lucia walked among the works, proud. Thomas, now more confident than ever, guided some people, telling the story of his paintings. Isabel watched, moved, as he and the other young people expressed themselves authentically, each finding their voice through art. At one point, one of the event sponsors approached Isabel with an impressed smile. Isabel, your project is something I've never seen before. The impact you are making here is something rare and precious. I would like to support this initiative in an even broader way, taking this exhibition to other states. What do you think? Isabel, with her eyes shining with surprise and emotion, looked at Lucia before responding. The proposal was exactly what she dreamed of, expanding the reach of the project and giving more young people an opportunity. Isabel accepted the offer with gratitude, realizing that with the support of new partners, her legacy could go beyond what she had imagined. Lucia smiled, sharing in her grandmother's excitement. "Grandma, your dream is becoming something even bigger than you imagined. I'm sure this is just the beginning." Isabel nodded, emotional. "Yes, Lucia, and it's something I could never have done without you by my side. This project is ours. Each young person we help, each story we tell, is a piece of us that we leave for the future." The event continued with speeches, applause, and moments of genuine emotion. Isabel took the opportunity to thank everyone and reinforce the importance of the project. In a brief speech, she said, "This project was born from a personal transformation. In a moment of loss, I found a new reason to live, and with each young person who comes through here, I realize that true wealth lies in what we can do for others. My wish is for this initiative to continue growing and bringing hope to many who, like me, seek a purpose. Thank you all for believing with us." The audience applauded enthusiastically, and Isabel felt her heart overflowing with happiness and peace. That night, which celebrated the collective effort of so many people, marked a new era for the project. Isabel knew that the impact of her work would echo for a long time, reaching lives she might never know but that would carry with them the flame of hope and transformation that she, Lucia, and all the young people had ignited together. With the success of the event, Isabel and Lucia dedicated themselves to expanding the project, now with more resources and support. Isabel never imagined that her desire to give a second chance to young people could grow so much. The project gained national visibility, with exhibitions scheduled in various cities, attracting new sponsors and sparking the interest of other young talents eager for an opportunity. A year later, on a sunny day, Isabel and Lucia met at the project headquarters to officially inaugurate the Isabel Torres Institute, a foundation dedicated to promoting and supporting young artists from across the country. Surrounded by journalists, sponsors, and the young people who had been the first beneficiaries, Isabel and Lucia cut the inauguration ribbon, symbolizing a new beginning for many more generations. As she watched the activity around her, Isabel reflected on how her life had changed. The past and the disappointments she had faced felt distant, like an old chapter of a book that was already closed. Now, she saw her present and future reflected in the eyes of those young people, filled with hope and potential, and in the hands of Lucia, who would help continue her legacy. After the ceremony, Isabel and Lucia sat in the foundation's garden, watching the young people interact and express themselves freely. Isabel took a deep breath, feeling a peace she had never experienced before. "Grandma, you know that all of this is the result of your strength, right?" Lucia said, observing the pride in her grandmother's eyes. "You turned a moment of pain into the greatest act of love in your life. I'm sure you will still impact thousands of people." Isabel, moved, took Lucia's hand. "And you, my dear, were the one who gave me the strength to move forward. This project is ours. It is a part of us. Knowing that you will continue to care for it when I am no longer here brings me peace. This is my legacy, and also yours." The two embraced, and Isabel, with teary eyes, felt fulfilled. Her path of illusions and deceptions had been transformed into something infinitely greater, into a legacy that would endure long after her departure. As the sun set, Isabel looked around, feeling a deep and immeasurable satisfaction. She had finally found the meaning of life, a genuine love based on compassion, mutual support, and building a better future for those who would come after. And so, with the Isabel Torres Institute fully operational, Isabel could close this chapter with peace in her heart, knowing that her story, marked by pain and overcoming, was now also a story of hope and rebirth.